If you find a decaying car with new interior in Colorado, don't enter it whatever you do. Anyone who has even spent time in a small town knows how rumors fly. Everywhere you go, you will hear gossip about affairs, who was kicked out of town, how the manager of the local diner got fired, and so on. Sure, my town might have those things, but the rumors don't stop there. Anomalies, missing people, cryptids, you name it. Around almost every corner you'll find something you wish you hadn't. For a bit more context, I live in a small town of about 2,000 people in eastern Colorado. For privacy reasons, that is all the information I will give you about my location. I was born and raised here. After graduating high school, I just never left and had no intention of leaving. For the most part, these rumors are just that. Rumors, urban legends, folklore, whatever word you find fitting. At least that's what I believed until just a few years ago when I started to get curious about some of the rumors. When I was young, I would just stumble upon them. As I got older, I would seek them out, to uncover the oddities of this town I am so fond of. I am here to tell you all about my small town and all its wonderful and terrifying anomalies one at a time, starting with Old Man Marley's abandoned car. It was the summer of 2017. My friends and I were bored and wandering around private property. "Hey, wait, isn't this Old Man Marley's land?" Linda said to me with a burst of energy. "Yeah, I think it is. Why does it matter?" I respond back to her in an uninterested tone. "Callie, you don't remember the old rumor about him? You're kidding, right?" Linda remarked with a snicker. "You honestly expected me to remember every little rumor this damn town has." Just as I finished my sentence, Ally jumped in. "Oh, come on, you have to remember. Kids have been talking about Old Man Marley since middle school." I shook my head as she tried to jog my memory. "You know, the old car in the field that people never came out of or whatever." "Yeah, I think I remember something like that," I responded back half-heartedly. "Come on, let's go try and find it," Ally said with excitement. "I promise you, it's not as fun as you think it is," Linda said with a chuckle. "Wait, you've been in it?" I said with my interest rising. "No, I've actually never seen anyone sit in it. I just looked at it from afar and felt creeped out and left." We all stood still in our places. Our curiosity slowly grew inside of us. "I think I can remember where it was. It's been a few years, but let's look." We walked around the 100-acre property casualty for the next hour when we finally found it. It was nearly impossible to make out the make or model of the car. It looked like it was once a light blue but was covered in years of rust and decay, weathered by the hot summer sun and harsh winters. I'm not really a car expert, but it looked like a car from the 1950s. It was slightly sunken into the earth, like it had begun to accept its fate as part of the land. It was about a mile away from a road, so it really didn't make a lot of sense for it to be out there. However, it wouldn't be the first time I saw a random old car just decaying in some dirt. As we got closer to the car, we felt uneasy. The car had a few trees and bushes surrounding it that would just slightly scratch at the paint, making a hideous screech as the wind blew. We were a couple feet away and started to shyly giggle. All of us were unsure as to why we were so nervous. Linda learned to open the door. It took some muscle, but she got it open. The windows were either tinted or became black some other way because we couldn't see inside. Our jaws hit the floor when we looked inside. We were blown away by a beautiful 1950s interior. What was surprising is that it looked brand new. At least I would imagine it would look brand new. The seats were cherry red and leather. I could smell the new car smell from feet away. Fuzzy dice hanging from the rear view mirror. And strangest of all, The radio was softly playing an old song that none of us recognized. I had goosebumps all over my body. We all heard some rumors about the car, but none of us remembered ever hearing about the inside being perfectly preserved. Linda leaned forward and found keys in the ignition. She took a deep breath and sat down. Ally and I both gasped as she hit the car seat. We all froze, feeling like idiots trying not to move as the wind whistled by us. "See, guys, I told you it was silly," Linda said, as she started to fidget with stuff inside the car. Ally and I made our way around the car, looking at it at every angle. Something still felt so wrong about all of it. "Sorry to disappoint you ladies, but I am still here. As you can see, I am still in the car, even though," she shut the car door before she finished her sentence. Ally and I stood by the car, waiting for an uncomfortable amount of time for her to open the door back up. We figured she was trying to be funny or trying to scare us, and we didn't want to get in the way of her joke. After what must have been 90 seconds, I walked up to the door. I flung the car door open, expecting her to yell, "Gotcha," at me or something dumb, but to my shock, she wasn't in the car. Not only that, but the interior of the car now looked old, like the outside of the car. The radio was off, and the keys were gone. The two of us spent the next hour freaking out trying to find her. We tried to find her on our own because we didn't want to get in trouble for being on private property, but after finding no signs of her, we asked for help. That was the last time I ever saw Linda. The years passed by, and it was as if nobody cared she went missing. I couldn't even find records of her disappearance online. A couple of years later, I was wandering around Old Man Marley's field. I saw the car and was brave enough to open the car door, and I was amazed to see the beautiful new interior that was in the car before Linda went missing. The old-timey song that echoed on the radio sent shivers down my spine. It brought me back to the last time I saw Linda. I pulled myself out of my fuzzy memories and walked back into town. I was planning on just going home, but stopped by the local diner. I got inside just as it started to rain. It felt like the weather was trying to match how I was feeling. I sat down at the high-top bar with the bar stool squeaking in the process. Mrs. Patty saw me from the kitchen and got a puzzled look on her face. I won't go into too much detail about Mrs. Patty, but she has been in this town longer than most people I know. She has definitely seen some things, but that's another story for another time. "Why so gloomy, baby?" she said with a smile and a twang. "It's nothing. I just have a lot going through my head." I could tell as soon as I looked up at her that she didn't believe my lie. She was a stubborn woman, and I knew I wasn't going to win this game. Okay, you win. Have you ever heard anything about that old car in Mr. Marley's field?" Before I could even get the sentence out, her eyes widened. It was clear I jogged her memory. "Oh wow, it's been years since I thought about that car. Yes, when I was young, we used to dare each other to go sit in it. It started out with people just saying it was haunted because of the music that would play on the radio. Then one day, my friend Rebecca shut the door. A few other kids and I watched from a little ways away, but got confused when the door didn't open. I walked up to open it up, and she was gone. We searched for her for a while, then gave up and went home. We told our parents, and that was that. A week later, my friends and I all went back. My friend Sal did the same as Rebecca. He sat down and shut the door. I think you can guess where the story goes from there. I never saw Rebecca or Sal again. They just disappeared into thin air. Yet another one of the big mysteries of this town, she murmured as she whipped down the bar counter. "Wait, are your friends the ones that started the urban legend?" "Yes, unfortunately. They didn't get justice. It seemed like everyone else just forgot about them." She paused and then looked at me. I could tell she had the realization that I had been to the old car. "Oh no, don't tell me you." I interrupted her. Yes, you remember my friend Linda? She got in the car and never came out. Oh, that poor sweet girl. I'm so sorry, Callie, she said to me in a loving tone while I tried not to lose it. You know, something that always stood out to me about that car was the keys in the ignition. As she finished her sentence, I perked up. What? What about the keys? I replied. Well, I'm sure as you know, when you open up the car, the inside looks as good as new. It looks as if it's been sent back from the 1950s, but as soon as someone gets in and shuts the door. The next time the door is opened, the interior is old and matching what the rest of the car looks like. But do you know what's missing when you open that door back up? The keys. Exactly. I don't know if that means anything, but where do those keys go? I don't know. It's probably nothing, but I'm too old now to do anything about it. No, I think you are onto something. I blurted out and I jumped off my chair and ran back into the rain. I ran back to the old car. As I sprinted through the trees and jumped into puddles, I started to think how stupid the idea was. I finally had my eyes on the car. As soon as my eyes landed on it, I swore I felt it looking back at me, daring me to get in. I slowly approached the car, feeling dumb for being so scared, but had to remind myself to stay sharp. I wrapped my cold fingers around the car handle. The sounds of the raindrops hitting the windshield gave me a false sense of peace. I opened the door and I was greeted with the all too familiar sights and sounds of the car's interior. The saxophone on the radio sounded louder than ever. I put my knee on the seat, making sure that if the wind blew the door shut, my leg would stop it. I leaned over to take the key out and was met with more resistance than expected. I assumed it was just from the keys rusting and getting stuck. As I pulled harder and harder and harder, I started to feel dizzy and lightheaded. I let off the keys and sat for a moment to think, making sure my leg was still protecting the door from shutting. As I sat in the car, I realized how relaxed I felt, how soothing the music started to sound, how soft the leather seats felt against my leg resting on it. I felt an intense urge to sit in the car and shut the door. After a couple minutes, it went from an urge to something I actively had to fight off. I shut my eyes and gritted my teeth, grabbing the keys and pulling one last time. To my surprise, I was able to get them out. The music started to blare and went from a claiming tone to a raging orchestra. It took all my strength to leave the car, but I knew I had to. I heard a voice in the back of my head telling me that if I stayed, maybe I could find where all those people went missing. They had to go somewhere, right? Maybe with the knowledge I had of the car, I could find them and get out, but I knew in my heart that wasn't true. I managed to get out of the car. When I got out, I ran as fast as I could, not looking back. As I ran with the keys in my pocket, I wasn't sure where I was running to. I thought I should maybe give them to Mrs. Patty, but I didn't feel like she should have that burden on her hands. After all, the keys could mean nothing. I decided just to keep them. I got home and went into my room. I looked for a good place to keep them, but ended up throwing them in my bedside drawer. The next day, I went to look at the old car to see if anything would change now that I had the key. The outside was normal, however. I was met with not only missing keys, but the interior of the car looked old. Not the typical brand new leather. I felt so relieved. The problem was fixed. I just needed to keep the keys in a safe spot or get rid of them altogether. I went back to my house with a plan to get rid of the keys. I opened up the drawer to find the keys missing. I panicked and dumped the whole drawer out onto the floor. No keys. I searched all around my room for hours. I tried to remember if maybe I never even put them in the drawer. If I misremembered. I gave up and went to sleep. After all, maybe the keys just took care of themselves. Now I didn't have to worry about what to do with them. When the morning came, I had to drive out of town for some errands. I headed out to my car, but before I opened the door, my heart sank as I heard music playing on the radio. I slowly opened the door and peered over the steering wheel to see that rusty old key in the ignition. I felt the same strong urge to shut the door and let the car take me away to wherever the keys take people, but I was focused and got them out. The confusion filled my head. I had so many questions. How did the keys get into my car? How did they fit into both cars' ignitions perfectly? After testing if my normal keys still started my car, I jumped out and looked for a place to bury the old cured key. Before long, it was a foot underneath the earth. I checked my car a few hours later, and to my amazement, the old keys returned. I took them out again. My next attempt was putting them in a box and throwing it in a pond. They still came back. No matter what I did, they always came right back into my car. I even managed to split it in half with some heavy-duty tools, and boom. It came back a few hours later. Still to this day, I have those damn keys that just love my car. It seems they need a car as a host of some kind. I'm not a big fan of my car having the power to take me to the underworld at any minute, but if someone has to live with it, it should be someone who knows what they can do. That being said, I never let anyone borrow my car.